Hey everyone, I'm Fox with FoxeoGames, and this is a review of I Am Overburdened for the PC. I was provided with a copy of the game at no charge. I Am Overburdened is an indie roguelike or roguelite, whatever. It's a game inspired by the rogue genre. It retails at the full price of $4.99 on Steam for Windows PCs. The author describes the game as a silly roguelike full of crazy artifacts and a hero who has 20 inventory slots. Well, that's not untrue. It is quite tongue-in-cheek and outright humorous at times. It's a simple game at heart with a slight bit of complexity on top thanks to the various inventory items and upgrades you can collect. You move around on a screen of 2D tiles via the WASD keys, arrow keys, gamepad, or using mouse pathfinding. It uses these little feet icons to show you where you're going if you use the mouse, which is cool because I have pleasant associations with feet icons from several older games that did that as well, namely Legends of Kesme. You move one square at a time through the various levels of the dungeon, each represented by a single screen. No scrolling here. The levels are procedurally generated with walls, stationary enemies, items, coins, chests, and a stairway to progress farther downward. Once you go down a set of stairs, there's no going back. You attack enemies by simply moving toward them with turn-based attacks that rely on your character's items and upgrades for stats. Your goal is quite obviously to progress farther and farther downward into the dungeon while collecting as many upgrades as possible, and of course, avoiding death. Death is permanent and requires that you start the game over from scratch, losing everything you've collected, but that's normal for roguelikes. Speaking of collecting, this game is all about the loot. You can hold up to 20 unique items in your inventory while also collecting gold and various upgrades. Upgrades include veggies for improving max health, metal for defense, coffee for speed, I like that, meat for attack power, and so on. Once you understand the upgrade system, you realize how important it is to collect these items. As you progress deeper, you will come up against ever more powerful monsters, so having extra defense, attack, and speed is critical. There are also health potions to pick up, as well as some potions that will do you harm or even cause you to hallucinate and see things that aren't really there. Wow, reminds me of college. Just kidding, I've never done any illegal drugs. No, seriously, I haven't. I've never used any illegal substance at any point in my life, and I recommend you don't either. Winners don't use drugs. Losers use drugs. Don't be a loser. The game plays at 60 FPS, not that frame rate is a real big deal here. My program reports it at 61 FPS, but it may just be an issue with how the frame rates are being counted. As for options, there are actually quite a few given the game's simplicity. You can modify the key bindings or gamepad controls, go into windowed, full screen, or borderless windowed mode, change the window size in windowed mode, and turn on and off various features like the screen shaking on certain actions. You can also control separate sliders for the audio. Speaking of audio, there is a faint muddled voice that plays whenever you talk to a character, which doesn't happen very often outside of the first screen. And that's just gibberish, I think. The audio in the game is alright. It's nothing spectacular, but it's definitely not bad, except for maybe the annoying sound effect for collecting coffee upgrade items. It's way too loud and only plays part of the tune it's based on, which I think is from the American Civil War. I really don't know. Someone will tell me in the comments section below, I'm sure. The music is complementary to the gameplay and remains a background tune that never draws too much attention to itself. The game also tracks your progress in various ways, showing you these statistics via the in-game menu. I didn't mind playing the game over and over again, but I definitely have some criticisms. Some additional musical variety would have been nice. The song doesn't get annoying, but it would enhance the experience if more ominous songs played as you progress deeper into the dungeon. The graphics are incredibly simple, but in the end I don't mind. We should all be used to games that have simple 2D art by now, since it's kind of the cool thing to do as of late. The gameplay has a few problems. It's fun on a basic level, and that's the reason I kept playing over and over again, but there are some significant issues. There's just too much randomness, or RNG as they call it, the random number generator. The levels are sometimes laid out in odd patterns with meaningless placements of enemies and items. Take this area for example. If you look over here, you'll see that the level has an entirely pointless corner with literally nothing in it. It's a dead end with no items or enemies. If you look in this area, you'll see that enemies are blocking areas, but there's nothing in those areas, making it completely pointless to fight them. You don't gain experience or level up, so fighting enemies is best avoided when possible. Many levels will place enemies in completely avoidable spots, so much so that you can just cruise right on by, completely ignoring them. They are stationary after all, I mean, they don't move.
Yeah, that's kind of what stationary means, genius.
Hey, I'm just clarifying in case some of my viewers didn't understand. Also, because of the randomness of the procedural generation, there will often be minor items or gold behind a bevy of tough monsters, or a stash of many valuable items behind a single weak monster. There's little sense of balance, and the risk versus reward element is often heavily skewed one way or the other as a result. The randomness can often put you in impossible situations. Sometimes, if the game doesn't generate enough health potions and puts one too many monsters in your path, you'll die, and there's no way around it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's no element of strategy here. There certainly is. You have to choose the most expeditious path from the entrance to the exit, choosing which items you want to risk going after based on the layout of monsters in your path. Avoiding monsters is the way to go. Fight them as little as possible in order to maximize your loot and upgrades while getting to the exit. It's a trade-off. Do you tackle 3 tough monsters to get some upgrades? Do you think you can recover the health lost from fighting these monsters by picking up the potion located behind them? There's definitely strategy here to be learned, but sometimes, based on how the dice roll, you will just be screwed and have to take your death like a man. You wouldn't want to take it like a woman. That would just be sexist.
Dude, that didn't make any sense.
I know, I didn't even proofread this script before recording. Anyway, my last little complaint is the pop-up window that appears when you pick up various unique items for your 20-slot inventory. It sits right smack in the middle of the screen, blocking your view. It'd be better to put it at the top or the bottom, or pause the gameplay and require a button press to remove the prompt. As it stands, you can end up moving around underneath it while not being able to see your character. But not to end on a sour note, I will say that despite its flaws and limitations, I did enjoy playing I Am Overburdened. It's fun enough for some short gameplay sessions. I imagine the developer could really improve upon this basic formula in the next game, which I suggest be entitled I Am Really Overburdened. Suffice it to say that playing I Am Overburdened is not overly burdensome. I'm Fox with FoxeoGames, and if you enjoyed this video, consider donating to my Patreon to help support the channel. I put in quite a bit of overtime at work, and with enough donations I could cut down on that overtime and instead spend it playing and reviewing video games, or even streaming. The link to my Twitch is in the description down below, along with my social media links as well. Follow me on Twitter, but I must warn you, expect to see lots of retweets of Asian women in cosplay outfits. You've been warned. I will see you guys later.
This whole review has been a burden.
Oh, shut up.